Gamers, I was wrong. It takes a brave man to come forth and admit his mistakes. And my initial thought on Elden Ring Nightreign, I was wrong. Now, look, don't get me wrong. I still think the game has many flaws, and I still think it needs a lot changing, slash fixing before the game is in a perfect state. But my initial thoughts on how bad the game would be, I was wrong. So stick with me. I'm going to talk through some of the things that I initially said that were wrong, and then we're going to look at some more positives now that I have sunk nearly 100 hours into the game in less than a week. Let's get into it. We're going to start off talking about the solo runs. Now, the solo run was a big one for me because I often spend a lot of time playing solo games whilst I'm doing other things, or, I'm trying to work out new games to talk about them on YouTube or TikTok or wherever it is. The solo one for me was a big one because it felt like it was just an impossible challenge that didn't get any easier, even if you made a very strong build, you had very good RNG, and you had lots of weapons that were dropped for you that were perfect for your build. It still felt like it was an impossible challenge, despite having the perfect run, whether it was, you took out a few great enemies, you found some top tier legendary weapons. It still felt like the challenge was mostly impossible. Now, From Software on their first patch have made the solo runs way better. Not easier, the game is still difficult. If you are, atrociously bad at PvE and you can't get out of the panic rolling mindset and stuff, you are still going to struggle like mad, which that's how the From Software games should be, and it's how they should always stay. You should have to get good for the, sake of finding better words to use. The solo runs have now been semi-fixed, and they are way easier to manage than what they were before. Now, they state there was only 2 changes made for the solo runs, and that was you gain more runes when you're playing solo, but also you are given an extra life if you die when playing solo. I think they made a few more changes than that, like even the balancing just feels a little better. But overall, the solo runs now are 10 times more enjoyable to play than what they were. Now, the next point I wanted to discuss, I still think it's a big negative. Now, and that's the comms, the communication system in Elden Ring Nightreign. Now, in the older Elden Ring From Software games, you always had a voice chat which you could turn on in the settings, and when you connected in someone's world, you could actually voice chat through the game. I'm not sure why that wasn't added, I'm not sure why that was taken out in this game. It's absolutely ridiculous that it was taken out. But I did find out that there is actually a way to indicate weapons on the floor if you wanted to communicate with your team to say, look, I've just been given this, here's the staff, you can pick it up. So yeah, walk up to the weapon or drop a weapon on the floor. If you hold triangle, then click L3 on PlayStation. That will indicate that you've dropped it, and it'll also indicate what weapon it is. On PC, I believe it's just X. I'm not quite sure what it is on Xbox, but you get the gist of it. You can indicate weapons on the floor. So yeah, overall, I still think the communication system they've put into Elden Ring Nightreign, which is non-existent, is dog muck, and that shit is not good enough from a company as big as From Software, from a company that's made as much money from Elden Ring and has all of this functionality already in the game, the previous games. That's not good enough from Software. They should have done better with that. But, at least they've given us some form of communication for weapons and stuff. And you never know, maybe they'll take all the feedback they've been getting on board and add back in the previous voice chat system that was in the older games. We'll see, I guess. Now, with the 2 main points out of the way, I want to talk about some smaller points that I do think need to be fixed and fairly soon. First one being the matchmaking for the remembrances. Now, if you've tried to do the remembrances recently, you will have probably found out that waiting for the remembrance can sometimes take 10-15 minutes. And if you're anything like me, you don't have the attention span or even the I can't be bothered to be waiting that long. So what you end up doing is trying to do it all solo, which granted, the solo expeditions have been helped, but personally I still think that's not very good if you're waiting 5, 10, 15 minutes for, the matchmaking to kick in on a game that is less than a week old. But, for those of you who co-op a lot with your friends or do PvP, you already know how bad the matchmaking system is. Now, From Software have mentioned they are going to be fixing that or making it better in the next patch that they're going to be releasing. I believe that's tomorrow, the 6th. So we'll see what happens then. We'll see if it gets better. The next thing I want to talk about is the RNG on the weapons you get. The randomness or the lack thereof you get when actually looking for weapons. Now, I've done a shitload of Recluse runs because I didn't realise that you had to do something after being the final Night Lord to unlock her last remembrance. Turns out you have to do a specific thing for it to unlock. So naturally, I was doing lots of runs, and I couldn't help but notice that every run I was getting, I was given the same crap. I was given Crystal Barrage, I was given, like, Slicer, And it didn't really, there wasn't really any randomness to it. It was pretty much all the same locations, gave all the same stuff. It turns out that it was pretty much the same for the Revenant. You get the same weapons, same spells attached to the weapons. And yeah, the RNG, the randomness on those particular things didn't feel very good. Now, I read through some of the comments on my previous video that did, it's like 4,000 views on it. And then there was a load of comments on it. A lot of them hate because, you know, From Software, they can't help but spread hate and not try and understand the issue that's going on. But a lot of the comments were basically people saying that the RNG for them was also terrible. So yeah, I don't think you should be given the best weapons every time you run through the game. You know, obviously there needs to be some form of balancing, and not everyone should get the best possible spells and the best staff. But I can't help but feel that the seed for the RNG and the weapons all feels pretty much the same. It doesn't feel that random. So yeah, that's just my 2 pence on the RNG, and it also appears to be the same for a lot of other people playing. So yeah, those are some of the things I wanted to discuss. I mean, I do think my initial 6 out of 10 was maybe a little low. It's probably more like a 7, 7.5. It definitely isn't a bad game. And, you know, and I did say it in my previous video, it's a fun game. It just has some issues that need addressing before it turns to a... You know, it's never going to be a perfect game because you can't please everyone. But it is a very, very good game. And when those things are addressed, people enjoy it a lot more. I've already heard a lot of people are already quitting, and you know, because they can't get through the first couple of bosses. Please don't quit the game. Please carry it on, because the final boss itself is worth playing through, and it's worth having the stress to get to the final boss, because that final boss is absolute cinema. And as usual, From Software do cook with their big bosses. And just further to add to that point, don't be afraid to reach out to some of the Elden Ring community discords to ask people to co-op with you, because a lot of people will co-op with you. People are always looking for, you know, new people to actually do co-op stuff with in this game, which is the good thing about this community. So yeah, gang, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. I was wrong. The game is way better than I initially thought. Whether that's some of the balance changes From Software have made, whether the patches, the future patches are going to make it even better, I'm not sure. But I guess we'll see. So if you have got this far, I appreciate your time and I appreciate your viewership. I appreciate you, you know, getting through this, whatever it is, 7 minutes with me. I understand the world is a very busy place at the moment, and everyone wants everything done really quickly, and they want to, you know, they don't really want to be watching videos for this long. It just wants to be a sub 1 minute video to get straight to the point. So if you have got this far, I really do appreciate you being here. As always, feel free to hit the follow the sub button. It does help me out massively. And yeah, I guess I will catch you on the next one, but just to finish it, I was wrong. The game is way better than I initially thought. Thank you, From Software.